All right, Fernal Blessings. Was a little busy over the weekend, so I could not shoot any videos on Saturday and Sunday. But today's Monday. I'll be back to trying to get a couple of these short videos up throughout the week. All right, so first, before I begin, some quick announcements. If you would like to reach out, information on how to sign up for the classes I offer, again, the way to do that is to go to the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page at patreon.com/Baniti, B-A-N-I-T-I. Again, that's patreon.com/Baniti, B-A-N-I-T-I. Tier 3 is the tier you want to join. That will give you access to the 3 private classes I do every month on Patreon for Patreon members only. And it gives you access also to the monthly ritual we do together at the end of the month. All right? So that's the way you want to go. Patreon.com/Baniti, B-A-N-I-T-I. Tier 3 is the tier you want to join to get access to all the monthly classes. Also, if you're interested in a spiritual reading or a spiritual consultation, the type of readings I do offer is Apothic demonic readings. I offer Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, shadow work readings, which is always a good reading to do at any point, at any time, especially if you are looking for the direction you should be going in currently at the moment in your life. Shadow work reading really digs into the hidden or the shadow self to kind of see where you are at in the spectrum of things. If you're interested in a deity reading to see what spirits and demons and gods and goddesses that walk with you to strengthen your connection on this path and to those spirits, not to worship them, but to give you a better understanding of yourself and to help you grow, a deity reading is the way you want to go. For a full list of readings and prices on consultations and readings and information, shoot me an email at khnum19@gmail.com. I will send you that information on how to book a reading or a consultation. It's always good to get, save time. Always send the days and times you're available, plus the time zone you live in. I can give you a quicker response of what I have available based schedule-wise, all right? Also, 6th Annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference is in full effect. You can sign up and register now. We are now signing up and registering and, signing spots up. We do have a cutoff. If we get to exceed that maximum limit, I will let people know when we're there. Still got plenty of space for the conference. Some of you a couple have already signed up. People reaching out, send me an email. Again, khnum19@gmail.com. And I will send you that information on how to either sign up to attend in person or to sign up virtually. Okay? 4-day event, meet and greet on Thursday night, classes and workshops on Friday and Saturday, with a group ritual on both nights in the evening. After that, we go out for a group dinner, a little socializing, hanging out, and fun. And then we wrap it up on Sunday, noon to 4, where I'll be doing a question and answer class where you can ask whatever it is you want to ask about this path. All right? You can attend virtually, which that'll give you access to all 3 days' classes, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay? So send me an email for either or, and I will send you the info. All right, that pretty much covers the... last thing, remember all this new content being uploaded to the Primordial Chaos podcast, which you can find on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. The direct link to the podcast is in the description box of this video, along with my email and contact information. All right? So you see the title. Is Baphomet and Jesus the same? Are they the same thing? Okay? So let's look at this closely. The answer to the question is yes. From an esoterical and occult perspective, yes. But let me address a few things in the very beginning of this video, because you get some slow people that won't watch the entire thing. They'll just take bits and pieces. Now, depending on your perspective, if you literally, I don't teach, nor do I believe, nor do I suggest anybody does, that Baphomet is some type of entity and deity. It's what it represents in its totality. It's a very powerful occult alchemical symbol. We know what it means as far as how we work it on this path, with totality, equilibrium, you know, the as above, so below, representation of the 4 elements, the activation of the Kundalini, etc. We know the whole breakdown, right? We all been there. We all know the whole breakdown. So we look at it, you know, the merging of the masculine and feminine energy, androgyny, all these things we look at from an occult perspective, and this is why we work with the Baphomet, however you want to pronounce it. Okay, and we know what it represents as an alchemical occult symbol. Now, whether you get into the lore and the history, say, of the Knights of Templar, where there's a lot of not proving information that people didn't understand, they say, well, they worship this demon spirit called Baphomet, right? Where it's passed in certain circles of information that Baphomet is some type of monster demon. And this is kind of comical, it's kind of funny, and it doesn't really, can't really even be proven. It's hearsay, it's just people's imagination running wild with no facts to support it. Most people, it's foundational information with Alphonsus Levi on Baphomet, which goes a lot deeper than Alphonsus Levi, a lot deeper. Okay, it's just people have a lot of surface information on Baphomet, and they don't really have any concrete information. Then there's the spooky-ass people when it comes to Baphomet who deal with all this satanic church, and yes, it's used in those circles, but you also need to do research and study how people utilize it in the way that they perceive it, because there's so many different perceptions and perspectives on what Baphomet is and really what it's not. Okay? So here's the thing. If you're looking at it from a literal perspective, then no. You're not going to understand what I'm about to go over. Because one, I don't look at Baphomet as a literal entity or demon. It's a symbol in what it represents. The gold face of the man, the androgynous breast, etc. So let's be clear on that. Now, the character Jesus. You're not going to get this video either if you are a fanatical Christian who believes in the modern day concept in the Western Hemisphere of the last couple of thousand years of Jesus. We know that Jesus, or the Christ character or figure, has been passed down through many cultures through time, right? Whether it's Heru or Horus, whether it's Tammuz in ancient Samaria, whether it's the Jesus found in India, right? There's multiple different Messiah character types you will find throughout the lore of history. So if you believe either or that Baphomet is a literal character, and this Jesus of the New Testament, which was grafted from many characters, then you're not going to get this video. So no, they're not the same in the sense from that, but from an esoterical occult perspective, 100%. Well, let me tell you why. If you look on the overlay, obviously the cover photo of this video, there's an image you will see, first and foremost, in some churches, more churches in the Far East, with that same pose that you see Baphomet, perched on the earth, with the as above, so below, with the hands in the same position, sitting in the same position, okay? So right there, automatically, they are trying to show you that there's a connection there. It's not a coincidence that that image is the same. So now you can sit there and place the argument, well, one got it from the other or vice versa. But the reality is, whichever one you accept or want to say, well, this one took it from that one did it, it's irrelevant. Somebody's trying to point something out here, okay? What are they trying to point out? As I said many times, if you affiliate and connect Baphomet to the adversary, which most religious people do, they see that symbol of Baphomet, so that's Satan, that's the devil. So I've done, you know, videos and classes on this over the years. You can find them on my YouTube. I think I did one, is Jesus and Satan the same thing, or some shit like, I can't remember. But the whole point is, there's correlations where when you look at the archetype of what Jesus represents and the archetype of what Baphomet represents, because remember, archetype is not just limited to what we call a deity. or a god or a goddess. An archetype, a play, a script for a movie can be an archetype or a character type. Go look up the word archetype. See, that's another problem. When people hear the word archetype, they kind of just limit it to deity, and that's incorrect, or god or goddess. So when you look at the Baphomet and the Jesus archetype, they're very similar in what they represent. So somebody's trying to subliminally put stuff out there when you see images like this, okay? So when you look in your Bible and they're connecting it to the adversary, which Baphomet as a whole is connected to the adversarial current or the adversarial path. And this is why you'll see it used in various different left-hand path occult groups, okay? So when you look at what the adversary or Lucifer or Satan or the devil in the Bible and Jesus, it's funny, they're both given the same attribute, son of the morning or the morning star, right? You find in Isaiah chapter 14 verse 12 where Lucifer is called the son of the morning star, and you also find it in Revelations 22 verse 16 where Jesus also is referred to the son of David, son of the morning star, okay, or son of the morning, okay? Now, there's a lot of attributes when you look at this so-called character, the devil or Satan, and Jesus, that's almost the same. And Jesus really, if you look at it and strip away all the religious indoctrination that people have been programmed with, Jesus was a left-hand path character when you read the story. Because he was anti the establishment. He was an anti-conformist. He went against every political and religious hierarchy that existed at that time when you're reading those stories anyway, right? He was against the Pharisees, called them hypocrites. Same thing as with the Sadducees, the scribes, right? He was a rebel and a renegade when you read this. I'm saying if we're going according to the story, right? He get pissed off if in a holy ground like the house of his father, you were exchanging money, he flipped tables, right? He was going to people that he was criticized and ostracized for helping and hanging around with tax collectors, criminals, prostitutes, the less fortunate, the sick, the whole nine. He was everything anti what was going on at that time. He was as left-hand path as you can get if you really read the story. Let's talk about the story. Let's just say it's a story. It's a myth. It's a fable. I'm saying if you look at it and you interpret it, there's nothing about him that was right-hand path or right-hand conformance. Now, even today, when you look at, I'm not saying all, but when you look at most religious folks, Christians, they ain't doing what Jesus did. A lot of them are up in their ego too. They're not helping a lot of these lesser fortunate groups. I'm not talking about what you see on TV and what they want to show you in public like they do. I'm talking about when you out and about in the real world and you see some of these religious folks. Some of them can be the most rudest, cruelest, disrespectful, meanest people you run into. Because some of them, it's all for show. Some of them want to be, you know, they want accolades for charity work that they're doing and this and that. And I'm not saying all, so please, nobody hit me up. And again, please, if you're a religious person or Christian, don't email me with no bullshit. Because I'm not even going to waste my time. It's not for you. So if you're going to be up in your feelings and take shit personal, then you might as well click off this video right now, okay? It's not for you. I don't make videos for you, so don't get up in your feelings, don't get mad, okay? But in the sense of the character type of Jesus in the story and what Baphomet represents, they're very similar. And what the adversary represents on the adversarial current. Nonconformity. Path of self-mastery. And this is what really got people, this is according, when you're reading the story, this is what got the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the political and religious leadership at that time. This is what really got under their skin. When he was saying he is God. That pissed them off. So you're saying you're God? And if you go into your own Bible, he clarifies it. Right? And again, I'm just saying according to the story. So don't go, are you saying it's literal? It's not. It's as literal or as fake as you want it to be. I'm just using the character type of the story. So let's just be clear on that. So what I'm saying, if you go into the story, he says, she, I just want you to be clear on that. I'm just telling it from the story perspective. Because remember, we can use mythology in all forms of culture and use it as a ritualistic tool to master ourselves. including the Bible from an esoterical perspective, an esoterical occult perspective, as far as the esoterical understanding. So they ask him, so you're God? You're saying you are God? Saying, he responds to them. If you go into John chapter 10, verse 44, the Gospel of John, remember this, letters of John, and then you have the Gospel of John, or the ghost spell of John, which is a whole other story. Anyway, he says, is it not written in your law that ye are gods, right? Children of the Most High. So this is his response. And he's telling these Pharisees, is it not written in your law? The so-called law you claim to be so holy art thou and uphold, isn't it in your law? Where is he getting that from? Well, he's getting it from the book of Psalms, chapter 82. If you read Psalms chapter 82 in its entirety, it's not but about 6, 7, 8 verses, real short. But it says there where King David, and I'm saying according to the story again, is talking to the congregation, and he says, ye are gods, all of ye, children of the Most High. But one important thing that follows right after, but ye will die like men. Right? So then now, they didn't understand what he was getting at. And then in essence, if you go back to Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it says, God breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So what he was actually saying was, we all have the essence of the Creator within us. So we all are God in that sense. But when he was referring to what was in their law, and he was quoting King David, they leave out the one important part. Ye will die like men. So not the type of mythological God, because they had no understanding of it. And it's the same way us today in 2023 say that we're gods, right? Or gods. Oh, you're no. See, we're not saying that from your spooky mythological perspective of what you think God is. No, not the old man with the long white beard sitting in the clouds somewhere that, you know, is keeping score and controls every facet of your life. See, that's the God religious folks want to think. When we're saying that, we're not saying that along that lines. And when this Jesus is saying that in these biblical stories, he wasn't saying it from their religious perspective, but they just didn't get it. They didn't understand it. And then what? We know the story as it continues. Eventually, at some point, they set out to kill him, to crucify him, right? And then according to the story, he's crucified, died, and buried, and he resurrects 3 days later. That, in essence, is the story of what you go through on this path. Okay? And this is why I said, from an esoterical occult perspective, they are the same thing in what they represent and what they mean. But if you're not on an esoterical or occult path, you're not gonna. It's not gonna make no sense to you, because you're gonna look at this, both of these characters literally, and you're gonna get stuck like Chuck. That's your business. But when you look at the story of being persecuted, crucified, killed, and then resurrected, what do you think you're doing when you come on this path? Think about it now for a minute. You come on this path. Once you answer to your vocation or your calling, right? Which we all did at some point. We're called to this path. And I said before, if you're truly on this path, you're called to this path. I don't really think, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, I don't think you can convert nobody over to this path. And this is why I said this is not the type of spiritual path where you go out trying to convert people, right? Like say they were doing Christianity or other religions where they evangelize and shit like that. The occult's not like that. I think everybody that's really sincerely on this path is called. They have a moment. They have something that transpired in their life that led them here. Not saying that don't happen with religions, but I'm talking about the conversion people. There's a lot of people who get converted to those religions. We don't try to convert nobody to this path. I know I don't. I know a lot of people I know that are on this path don't either, because they do believe you need to have a true calling to be on this path. Okay? So when you look at this story, when you come on this path, you made the intent. You know it's a nonconformist path. It's not accepted mainstream. So there's going to be some form of persecution on many levels, whether that's from family, from friends, outside people, people that don't understand this path. Just like the same thing in that time when you're reading that Jesus story, the same thing. Jesus and his disciples were looked at as renegades, anti the establishment, against the law, against mainstream. So I'm trying to show you the comparisons. Same thing when you come on this path. Some of you have been through it harder than others. Excuse me. You're looked at different. Okay? You're perceived different sometimes, and then sometimes you're judged. So the persecution starts right out the gate. Then from a spiritual perspective, when you really walk the path of the occult or the left-hand path, you come before the gods and the goddesses on this path and say again, like I've said many times before, here I am. Rip me apart, destroy me, kill everything about me that's weak, and then resurrect me as a self-perfected being. Isn't that the same story of Christ? He was persecuted for having his own opinion. He was persecuting for teaching something entirely obsolete from the law at that time, according to the history, because they didn't understand what he was teaching. They thought he was a blasphemer, right? It's the same thing with you. You're you're not on a path where you're following. You're a follower. He wasn't a follower. He gathered his own congregation or disciples. He started teaching the masses everything anti the establishment. And he wasn't afraid to speak out and stand up for himself. And he had a lot of wisdom. Oh, I'm sorry. I've been up since like 4:30. It's hitting me a little bit now, so I apologize for the yawning. So from the very get-go, he was a nonconformist. He was renegade in the sense that he had no problem expressing himself if it was against what was the mainstream norm. Okay? And to the very point where he was willing to lay down his life for it. And then we saw it got to the ultimate point where it was the greatest sacrifice, right? According to the story. Well, it's the same thing with you. You get to a point in this journey, in this path, where you are ripped apart so bad and destroyed, it's like you die a death before you can transform into the next chapter or phase in your life. And that's what that whole death and resurrection story represents and is symbolic of. So when you look at the character types, archetypes of both of these Baphomet and Jesus, yes, they're very similar in what they represent. Okay? There's a connection there with the Baphomet symbol on a multitude of levels, like I said in the beginning of the video. Strong connection with the adversary, right? Almost to the point where it's hard to decipher between the two. There's look, yeah, I know some people are looking at it and go, well, everything's not 100%. Nothing's 100%, right? But it's not a coincidence that a high percentage of it on both ends of things in spectrum is very similar. Okay? Again, when you look at the picture that I have for this video, the over the cover picture, that symbol, I mean, come on, man. Somebody knows something here. Somebody playing games. You know, and this is why I've always said, going back years, when you really start to study and you understand this thing called God and the devil, when you understand this, the spirit world and the spirits, you're going to find out, as far as the concept of God and the devil, they're just opposite poles of the same thing. There's no difference. Okay? As far as what it represents, they're polarities of the same thing. Now, we as humans can separate this shit and start classifying. This is what we do as humans. Because of our insecurities, our fears, our anxieties, our hang-ups we have. See, what weak humans do, religified humans, indoctrinated humans do, they got to do shit that makes them feel comfortable. Okay? And if it makes them feel comfortable, they're okay. But they got to take things and twist and distort and then what it becomes later on down the road becomes so far removed from what it actually was. And whether that's the concept of Jesus, a spiritual concept, or whatever. Once the powers that be get their hands on shit and indoctrinate it, it's a wrap. It's just, it's intentionally done, one, to keep the masses controlled, right? Systems of indoctrination are put out there for the sole purpose to control. The people that put them out there are trying to have control over things. Okay? But when you look again, and you have to look at this with a clear mind and common sense. And in order to see things from an esoterical occult perspective, you must be past the indoctrination or you'll never see it. And some of it's common sense. You say, wow, a lot of things in common with both of those symbols, character types, archetypes. Is that a coincidence? Be careful before you answer. We know there's no such thing as a coincidence. Okay? So absolutely it cannot be a coincidence. We know, if we're grounded on this path, that these type of things are real and they exist. It's what breaks that lock of mental indoctrination on your mind. So when you look at, for an example, and you are struggling, say, in the school of religious thought, let's just say you're a person transitioning and you still tend to sometimes get stuck in that religious ideology. Well, looking at things from an esoterical occult perspective is going to change that. Because esoterical is looking at things from a highly spiritual form. Okay? And then we know what occult means, just hidden. So when this stuff is hidden from us, those that don't know tend to get a little arrogant and ignorant when you're not in alignment with their mainstream beliefs or ideologies or dogmas or religious systems. Okay? So the Jesus character in the story is very similar to the journey, again, you take on this path. There's an awakening period of birth, right? There's the moment where you take the initiative to walk this path, and there's the steps that this Jesus character went through in the Bible. Then, when you gained a certain level of knowledge and you made the conscious decision to stand on your own, you're persecuted for it in certain circles, whether that's family, friends, or just strangers, or people from the outside perceiving you incorrectly because they're being judgmental. Is this not all what happened to this Christ figure in the Bible? To the very point where they wanted to kill him, and they did. And that killing represents a couple of things with you on this path, right? Where to the very point when you took the initiative to walk this path, you put yourself, I don't want to say in danger because that's not the right word, but you put yourself out there for them to toy with you. It also represents you voluntarily being a willing sacrifice. Don't they say Christ was a willing sacrifice? Which I beg to differ because there's some other quotes I can back that up, but I'm saying for the mainstream purpose, they say you're a willing sacrifice when you come on this path and you come before the Spirit to say, take me apart, destroy me completely. It's a death. Only to what? Like on the third day, like the Christ character in the Bible, he resurrected, which represents a renewal, a regeneration, a whole new cycle. Do you think this is a coincidence? You think this is just by some chance? There's a saying, and I think I mentioned it in one of the previous videos a week or so ago. We always heard this saying as a kid, you know, you got to pick up and carry your cross. Everybody's got a cross to bear, or a cross, you know, a burden to bear. Everybody has their own cross to carry. Why? Because the cross when you read the story of the Christ character, that was a struggle for him. Being tortured and so-called beaten and scourged, right? It happens to us on this path on a very psychological, mental, and emotional level. Right? You're carrying, again, just as an example, that burden or that cross. Because it's harder for you on this path, contrary to belief. See, people get fucked up and get it twisted. They think when they get on the path of self-mastery, the occult, the left-hand path, whatever you want to call it, some are misguided and they believe that, oh, it becomes easier. Oh, I got it made now. Oh, I'm going to be this really powerful magician and get everything I want. Not realizing there's a lot of work to do to get there. Not saying you can't, but some people set themselves up for huge disappointment where they think that stuff is going to happen literally right out of the gate. Literally. They think they're going to do a couple of rituals, light a few candles, say a few invocations, this, that, and the third, and poof. My life is all fixed. I told you guys it's a greater responsibility to have this knowledge and to know. And it is not. Because when you don't know, you don't have the knowledge, you get a pass for a lot of things that happen. That you do in your life and that happen because you didn't know. Right? So you can get away with a lot of bullshit. It's more of a responsibility. Okay? Yes, it could be quite rewarding. Okay? Yes, it's a path that, like I said, where do you go from here? And the rewards outweigh more the negative stuff. Okay? So yes, the Christ Jesus character in the Bible is very similar and the same to what Baphomet is in the sense of what Baphomet represents. In the form of the current of the adversarial path. Okay? So again, when you look at the Jesus story, he was very left-hand path in nature. Again, like I said earlier, he focused on helping criminals, tax collectors, prostitutes. Hung out with all these people that you're encouraged to not to. And I'm not telling you to go hang out with shady-ass people. We're using the mythology to show the example. Okay? And they would even ask him in the stories, why are you hanging out with those people? Sound familiar? When you're on the bed, why are you hanging out with those people? Ain't that satanic devil stuff? Because they have this perception in their mind of what the occult left-hand path is. Everybody, look, let me just be clear on something. Okay? Because you say you're on the cult or the left-hand path, or you use the Baphomet symbol with the five-pointed star or the pentagram, not everybody that uses that is a member of the Church of Satan, and I'm not knocking the Church of Satan. I want to make that clear. I'm not affiliated or a member in any shape, form, or fashion, but I'm saying you have a lot of ignorant people out there that see that symbol and they automatically use these terms from like they're so 1980s. Are you a devil worshiper? Who says that in 2023? Right? Not everything left-hand path occult is the Church of Satan or Satanism. Okay? Not in that sense. So see, that's where it gets twisted. Okay? That's where a little confusion settles in. So I don't embrace those ideologies, nor do I accept them. Okay? We're not looking at it in that perspective. I look at the esoterical occult meaning of this stuff. Because I can take that knowledge and that understanding from it and use it as a form of spiritual transformation. Well, you can't do that with a lot of systems. You can do it with this system though. Okay? You sure can. Okay, so when we look at it like that, in that regard, when we look at it like that, it's very similar in nature and what it represents. Very similar. So that's why I said in the beginning of the video, clear, before I wrap this up, make sure you saw the beginning of this video. If you're looking at this literal, you won't get it. You're not going to understand this. That's why I posted the images, so you can see the similarities that today somebody is trying to subliminally suggest something here. Whether you like it or not is irrelevant. See, it's one thing you're going to have to start to learn when you're a true seeker of knowledge. It's not about your likes and your dislikes and your personal hang-ups and I don't like this, I like that. You know, it's not. Sometimes you're just going to have to accept things when they're true, regardless if you like them or not. If you can't, then that shit's personal. You work that out within yourself. You straighten that internal turmoil out amongst yourself, because I ain't got time for that shit, okay? I'm past all that. So make sure you saw the beginning of this video. You weren't just clicking, because if you missed the first few minutes, you're not going to understand this, okay? Just want to be crystal clear on that. All right? So having said that, I'm at my destination in about a minute. I'm going to try to shoot one more video a little later if I can. Did want to get one up. I hadn't got one up in a couple days, and I want to stay consistent on getting some of these shorter videos out with this content. All right? Other than that, if you need to reach me and you want to sign up for my classes, again, patreon.com/Baniti, B-A-N-I-T-I. Tier 3 is the tier you want to join. If you're interested in a spiritual reading or a consultation, shoot me an email at khnum19@gmail.com. Same email if you want information for the 6th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference. Shoot me an email and I will get that information over to you. And don't forget, all this new content is uploaded to the official Primordial Chaos podcast, which is on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. And the direct link to the podcast is in the description box of this video. That is it for this video. Hopefully this video gave you some enlightenment, as they say in Luciferian philosophy, right? There's more I could touch on this, but remember, these are just quick videos to just give you a foundational understanding, all right? Other than that, infernal blessings, and we will talk on the next video, all right?